I was going to ask if we could shift to talking about some of those points, you said about the darkness and even as, layered with your own parenthood, like fatherhood, sorry, like because, a lot of times we come to parenthood and then, we want our children to behave a certain way or follow certain rules or values, and maybe we didn't always do that. And so how do you move through that, and how do you talk about that with your kids, and what's changed for you, and how that came to you?
Oh man, I've always kept it real with my kids. Um, since maybe to a fault when they were younger, they shouldn't have known about certain things, but they did. And I always kept it real with them. I talk to my sons like they're men. My son just turned 15 yesterday. Um, he's a great. I'm proud of him. He's turning out to be a great young man. He does very well in school. He's on honor roll, something I never was on. He plays every sport and he's nice at the sports. Like I never did none of that. Um, and my other son is the same thing. They both doing very well, and it's just I'm just grateful that they caught they're the ones that matured me into the person that I am. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be thinking like how I think now. Getting locked up, while being a father was probably one of the most heartbreaking um, experiences that I could have ever went through. Like especially with, like when you go to jail, you start having these lucid dreams, and you start dreaming about your kids, and you start seeing certain things in your subconscious that's like, damn, I never even knew that was there. And it's like the only person that you have to face is yourself. And that's a real big thing about jail is like if you can't handle that, if you can't handle facing yourself and the things, it'll change you. And that's what it did to me. It changed me. I said, I don't want to miss my sons. I don't want my sons to be here. I don't want my sons to be in this situation and think that this is okay. So it was a real they saved my life. They
That's
they they, they
incredible.
saved me.
I mean, those are those pivot points, right? Where it really can go one of two ways. You can kind of go inward and hate yourself more, right? Like I messed up. That's the end, right? And then go down. I mean, that all happens a lot, and it's understood. Now you're like you said, you need permission to alleviate yourself. You need permission to leave. You're on you can really it's a really, 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 really incredible story of how you found your way and with your relationship with your sons. And then that they then now are sort of role models in society, honor roll and sports and all these great things, and that's amazing. Um, and you've seen, I'm sure you were telling me just now about 3 or 4 influential people, most of whom you said have passed on. You're not that old. So you've obviously also seen your share of people losing their life too soon, whether it from violence or suicide or addiction. And when that's all around you, I mean, that's why it becomes like a cultural norm. Like people start to value life less because, well, everyone's dying, right? And so that's why it's so interesting to me, the fact that you were able to pull yourself into a new way of thinking and bring others with you, and then bring creative release to it, and then give word to it, and make now movies about, a lot of this stuff. But that's why it's really powerful, because it's really, really hard and lonely and painful and probably a lot of doubt. And so I'm just so glad that you were able to find the path out and up. And for so many people that can relate to it. I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about the personal relationships, because we were talking a little bit about what men and women want before we recorded, and talk a little bit about what that has been like, your relationships with women, and maybe even their mom, or, like how that's been and how that's evolved for you from what your early days and what you saw in terms of how we relate to each other to now.
Um, I think the evolution is I didn't care about anybody's feelings except for my own, and that was like a survival mechanism. The evolution in me is that I'm more mindful of how I say things, especially to like the mother of my children. Um, if she ever hit, I directly deal with my kids because they're grown now, so I want them to be able to feel like there's a line of communication that we can have directly and privately, that like they can tell me what they need to. But anytime the mother of my children hits me up and asks me for something, that's a no brainer. That's something that comes to me effortlessly. Uh, Regardless of what happens, everybody has their arguments, everybody has their ups and downs in the relationship. The way that I used to be towards women was very um, guarded, I would say. I really didn't trust them, but that was because the woman that raised me told me don't trust women. So I was like, you know what I'm saying? It was a lot of my life, but as you grow to being a man, it's like you learn certain things in life from experience. From just having the wherewithal to, put things together and say, this is the right thing. This is the right way to be. This is what is how it's supposed to be. Whether it be, you know, um, not like we were talking about feelings and being able to control your feelings as a man. You should be able to control your feelings as a man, I believe, because you're given strength and you're given as a man, you're given a lot of responsibility. And just to have raw emotions, anybody who loses control of their emotions as a man either ends up dead or in jail, and that's just the fact. So as a man, you have to be able to control your emotions, and that goes with dealing with the women that you have to deal with. Because at one point, anybody that got a baby mama, at one point you did love that person enough to have a kid with them, regardless of whatever happened. So that's a big change for me too, because like I said, I really did not give a fuck about anybody. Excuse my language. I didn't care about how nobody felt about nothing.